What's up, homies? SkunkMonkeY back again with another one. Today we're switching things up a little bit. I'm taking a short break from Tarkov and jumping into a game I've somehow managed to avoid ever playing. Arena Breakout Infinite. I've been meaning to try it ever since it came out because every time someone brings it up, the conversation always goes the same way. It's basically free-to-play Tarkov. As someone with somewhere around 1,500 hours that escaped from Tarkov, I figured I was probably about as qualified as anyone to answer one simple question. Is that actually true? Now, before the comment section erupts into a small-scale civil war, let me get this out of the way. I'm not here to crown a winner or tell you one game is objectively better than the other. I went in this wanting ABI to surprise me. If it's genuinely a worthy competitor to Tarkov, awesome. Competition is good. Lord knows Battlestate could use someone breathing down their neck. So I downloaded it, booted it up, and dove in completely blind. The first thing that hit me wasn't the gameplay. It was how finished everything felt. The game immediately throws you into tutorial, and within the first few minutes it became obvious that this is a remarkably polished game. Running nearly maxed out on my PC, performance was phenomenal. Silky smooth frame rates, instant responsiveness, no weird hitching, no random stutters, just smooth. Coming from Tarkov, that alone almost felt illegal. Graphically, I wouldn't call ABI groundbreaking, but it's definitely impressive, especially considering it's completely free. The textures are crisp, the lighting looks great, weapon models are detailed, and the environments are vibrant without feeling overly saturated. After only a few minutes, I started getting strong modern Call of Duty vibes. Not because the games play the same, but because everything has that clean, polished presentation. It's one of those things you don't really notice until you go back to Tarkov and remember that every other update has a chance of introducing a brand new species of performance issue. In that department, ABI absolutely deserves its praise. Then I started moving, and that's when I got my first taste of something that felt off. Not bad, just different. The best word I can come up with is muddy. Movement has this weird on-rails feeling that I never quite got used to. Maybe Tarkov's inertia has spoiled me over the years, but sprinting in ABI never really felt like I was exploding into motion. In Tarkov, when you hammer that shift key, it feels like your PMC is throwing its entire body into it. It's frantic, desperate, like you're trying to cover 20 yards before somebody ventilates your ribcage. In ABI, it feels more like you're doing a brisk skedaddle because your phone started ringing and you don't want it going to voicemail. You're definitely moving faster, but if it weren't for the weapon lowering or the louder footsteps, I'd honestly have a hard time noticing the difference. The thing that really threw me though was the inability to strafe while sprinting. Now, is that a deal breaker? Not at all. But once you spent years with that certain type of movement, losing it feels like that one itch on the bottom of your foot that's somehow always out of reach. It's weirdly specific, but if any of you have ever played PlanetSide 2, the movement reminded me almost immediately of that game. Smooth? Sure. Dynamic? Not so much. Now, to be fair, ABI does a lot better than Tarkov in other areas. I wasn't snagging invisible geometry every 30 seconds, vaulting worked consistently, and I never had one of those classic Tarkov moments where your PMC suddenly decides that stepping over a 6-inch curb is simply beyond the limits of modern science. After a few raids, I honestly stopped thinking about movement altogether, which, in a weird way, might be the best compliment I can give it. It never became something I loved, but it also stopped being something that got in the way. And that ended up becoming a recurring theme throughout my time with Arena Breakout Infinite. The moment the tutorial wrapped up, the game dropped me into the main menu, and that's when I had my first genuine hold on a second moment. I started clicking through my loadout, looking at my gear, getting my bearings. The longer I stared at the screen, the harder it became to convince myself I wasn't accidentally playing Escape from Tarkov. I'm serious. Headset, helmet, armor, face cover, backpack, rig, primary weapon, secondary weapon. By the time I was dragging ammunition, magazines, and packing surgery kits in case my limbs got blacked out, I actually had to laugh. This thing isn't just inspired by Tarkov, it practically has a restraining order against it. Now, don't get me wrong, none of these systems are patented. Plenty of extraction shooters have inventory management and healing mechanics and gear progression, but the similarities here are aggressive. Like, teacher said change the homework just enough so it doesn't look copied aggressive. I actually caught myself looking around for the hideout before remembering, wait, wrong game. And around that point I remembered Battlestate's old Twitter post where they called ABI a blatant plagiarist game. When I first saw that, I kind of rolled my eyes. I figured it was just another developer taking shots at the competition. 20 minutes into ABI, I can at least understand where they're coming from. Fortunately, once I loaded in my first actual raid, the game finally started showing me some of its own personality. And honestly, this is where ABI started winning me back. Right away, I noticed something that would have saved me dozens of hours back when I first started Tarkov. An actual map. Not the kind you have to buy, not the one that's buried on a wiki, just a map. Imagine that. I could instantly see extraction points, points of interest, objectives, and where I actually was in relation to everything else. Click on a point of interest, drop a waypoint. Follow the compass. Done. No second monitor, no 15 browser tabs, no watching a 20-minute YouTube guide just to figure out where the railroad tracks are. I always knew where I was going. Even the extracts themselves give you useful information before you ever arrive. Gotta ditch your backpack? It tells you. Need 2 dog tags? It tells you. 50% chance of even being there? It tells you. It's such a small thing, but it completely changed the experience of learning a new map. Compare that to my very first Streets of Tarkov raid, where I spent 35 minutes wandering around like a confused Roomba before eventually dying somewhere that, according to the wiki, wasn't even remotely close to where I thought I was. ABI does a fantastic job of removing that initial frustration without completely removing the sense of exploration. You still have to play the game, still have to learn the maps, it just doesn't expect you to have a bachelor's degree in cartography first. And honestly, I think that's one of the biggest philosophical differences between these two games. Tarkov almost seems proud of confusing you. ABI just wants you to play the game. Tarkov wants you studying for it. Neither approach is necessarily wrong, but they create two very different experiences. The funny thing is, by the end of my first couple raids, I wasn't really thinking about inventory anymore, or the movement, or even how suspiciously familiar everything looked. I was just playing, which ironically made the next realization hit even harder. Because once I stopped comparing the mechanics, I started paying attention to how the combat actually felt. And that's where I finally got to the part that I'd been waiting for. The gunplay. Because let's be honest, for an extraction shooter, this is the whole ballgame. You can have the cleanest UI in the world, the prettiest graphics, the best movement, but if pulling the trigger doesn't make my monkey brain light up like a Christmas tree, I'm probably not going to stick around for very long. Now, ABI definitely leans more into the arcade side of extraction shooters. That's not inherently a bad thing. In fact, that's probably intentional. Recoil is much easier to control, weapons are very approachable, and every time you land a hit, you're rewarded with that satisfying little thwip that immediately tells you you've connected. It's responsive, it's readable, it's easy to understand. There's absolutely an audience that's going to prefer that. But after a few firefights, I realized I just wasn't feeling anything. And that's really the best way I can describe it. I was winning fights, I just wasn't remembering them. Tarkov has completely ruined my standards for gameplay, and it's honestly unfair. Every shot in that game feels violent, not flashy or cinematic, but violent. The crack of a rifle echoing across the map, the metallic ping of a helmet, brass clinking on the concrete beneath your feet, the way your sight picture jumps when you let loose with a full power DMR, even getting shot feels awful, and I mean that as a compliment. Take a round to the thorax in Tarkov and your PMC looks like you just got kicked in the chest by a horse. The aim punch is jarring, your screen lurches, your heartbeat starts thumping, your brain immediately starts screaming, "Move!" Every firefight feels like controlled chaos. When you survive one, you just don't loot the body, you just sit there for a second trying to remember how to breathe. ABI never really gave me that feeling. Combat's perfectly functional, honestly, it's good. But good and memorable aren't always the same thing. During my second raid, I ended up wiping a 3-man squad, and here's the crazy part, I didn't even realize I did it. I dropped one guy, kept moving, peeked around a corner, dropped another, kept clearing, peeked around another corner, found a third guy. Eventually I started looting the bodies and found 3 dog tags. I literally had a moment where I thought, wait, I killed all these guys? Compare that to Tarkov. If I wipe a 3-man in Tarkov, I'm replaying that fight in my head for the next week. I'm remembering every peek, every grenade, every footstep, all the terrible decisions that somehow worked out anyway. I probably tell the story to my friends 6 different times and somehow make myself sound cooler with every retelling. Those moments stick with you. Not because Tarkov tells you they're important, but because the game makes you feel like they're important. That's a really difficult thing to manufacture. And I think that's ultimately where the biggest difference between these games starts to reveal itself. ABI gives you information, Tarkov gives you emotion. ABI tells you when you've landed a hit, Tarkov makes you wonder if the guy on the other end is still breathing. ABI's combat feels polished, Tarkov's combat is unpredictable. It's messy, brutal, sometimes it's unfair. It's exactly what makes it so intoxicating. You're never completely comfortable. Even after 1,500 hours, I still get nervous pushing certain buildings, I still hesitate opening certain doors. I hear a twig snap in woods and immediately start questioning every life decision that led me to that exact location. That's the magic. It's not that Tarkov is always fun, sometimes it's awful. But when it delivers one of those unforgettable raids, nothing else I've played has managed to scratch that same itch. And unfortunately for ABI, that's an incredibly high bar to clear. Because after a few hours, I wasn't thinking about the fights I'd won, I was thinking about how much they reminded me of fights I had somewhere else. Now, because ABI is free to play, there's one question sitting in the back of my mind the entire time. Alright, where's the catch? And it didn't take me very long to find it. As I leveled up and finished a few raids, my screen slowly started transforming into Times Square. Notifications, battle pass rewards, daily rewards, weekly rewards, limited time events, gift packs, cosmetics, little red dots everywhere demanding my attention like a toddler tugging on your sleeve every 6 seconds. To be fair, I never ran into anything that made me immediately think, oh wow, this is blatantly pay to win. But man, it was exhausting. It reminded me exactly why I tend to avoid free-to-play games in the first place. Everything feels like it's constantly trying to redirect your attention somewhere else. Of course, Tarkov isn't exactly innocent either. We've had years of monetization drama, Edge of Darkness Edition, Unheard Edition, features that people thought should have been included from the beginning, so really it's less of a question of which game has perfect monetization and more a question of which poison tastes slightly less terrible. Do you want to get eye-fucked by battle passes, FOMO, and enough pop-up windows to make a mobile game blush? Or would you rather spend $250 on a bigger prison wallet and a trench coat? Awkward. So after spending a few hours with Arena Breakout Infinite, where did I land? Honestly, I think the best word I can use is respect. I respect what it's trying to do. It's polished, it runs really well, it's approachable, it explains itself, it respects your time. And for someone who's never touched an extraction shooter before, honestly, I think it's one of the best entry points into the genre. Seriously. If you've got friends that have always been curious about extraction shooters but bounced off Tarkov after 30 minutes, tell them to try ABI. It's free. It's virtually zero barrier to entry. It teaches you how to play instead of expecting you to already know. It gives you maps, objectives, waypoints, information, confidence. It's an excellent first step. But here's the thing. The more I played, the more I realized something. The parts of Tarkov that made me fall in love with it are also the parts that most people complain about. It's confusing, it's brutal, it's inconsistent. Sometimes it feels like the game is actively rooting against you. And somehow that's exactly what gives it its identity. Tarkov doesn't care if you're having a good time, doesn't care if you're frustrated, doesn't care if you just lost 2 million rubles because you forgot to insure your gear. It just shrugs, loads you back into the stash, and says, go again. That sounds miserable, because sometimes it is. But every lesson you learn feels earned. Every successful raid, every boss kill, every PvP victory, every extract with your heart pounding at your chest, it all feels earned. That's what keeps people coming back. Not because Tarkov's fair, or it's polished, or respects your time, because it has character. That same brutality that makes one player uninstall creates another lifelong fan. It challenges something deep inside you. It makes you want to conquer it. And I think that's ultimately where ABI just fell a little short for me. I stopped playing a few hours ago, and I haven't really had that itch to jump back in. Not because it's a bad game, far from it. It just never gave me that feeling of one more raid. It borrowed so much of Tarkov's DNA that I couldn't help comparing the two, and every time I did, I found myself missing the imperfections, which is a really weird thing to say out loud. So, should you play Arena Breakout Infinite? Absolutely. Especially if you're new to extraction shooters. Think of it this way. Tarkov drops you into the woods at midnight with a half-empty Zippo, points vaguely toward the horizon and says, figure it out. ABI drives you there, maybe it packs you a lunch, gives you a flashlight, pulls up Google Maps on your phone, and wishes you luck. Neither approach is wrong, they're just trying to create two completely different experiences. But if you're looking for a game that's going to sink its claws into you, the one that'll have you laying in bed replaying a firefight over and over in your head, the one that'll make you swear you'll never play again right before clicking ready for another raid, I'm still giving that crown to Escape from Tarkov. Every single time. And that's about it for me, guys. If you enjoyed this little detour from my usual Tarkov content, let me know. I had an absolute blast making this video, and honestly, I'd love to do more stuff like this. Are there any other extraction shooters, or really any games at all, you think I should check out? I've basically been living inside Tarkov for the better part of the last few years, so it might be healthy to occasionally poke my head outside the bunker and remember that other video games exist. I also just want to say thank you. Seriously. Over the past couple months, getting back into content creation has been some of the most fun I've had in a long time. Watching this little community grow, read your comments, seeing the conversations you guys have with each other, it's been awesome. I generally appreciate every like, every comment, every subscription, and every one of you who takes a few minutes out of your day to watch these videos. It means a lot more to me than you probably realize. Until next time, I'm SkunkMonkeY. Best wishes to all of you, and as always, peace.